Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this morning. We appreciate it. I know this is one of those gripping topics that I'm sure you guys have all been looking forward to for a long, long time. The presentation is going to be pretty tight, about 8 slides, 20 minutes tops. This is just a concept that we've been talking more and more about on a onesie-twosie basis as we've been talking to clients, and it was just one that we wanted to at least present to a larger group and kind of lay the groundwork for this, because we do think it's something that, as we're evaluating these options for our clients, we do want to make sure everybody knows about it, know what's involved, know what the concept is, so that, when and if the day comes that they want to look at options, that they're comfortable with going through the steps that need to happen then. But I have Megan here kind of attending the call too, keeping an eye out for questions and hands raised and things like that. So feel free to interject and ask a question if you have it. Somebody else probably has that same thing in their mind, so please don't hesitate to reach out. But to jump right into things here, first off, level premium self-funding. It's a term. It's being thrown around a whole lot in all of the industry rags that we read on a regular basis, but I'm not sure how many folks here fully understand it, so I want to make sure everybody understands what it is, some of the terminology around it, and then what it can mean from a savings perspective for people that go down this road. So there's some basic terminology things that I feel like are the best thing to define early on, because they are things that, in the fully insured world is basically premium. However, in a self-funded, traditional self-funded environment, and now in this new world of level premium self-funded, it is important to kind of know the pieces, parts that make up the total cost scenario. So basic terms, you don't generally have setup fees unless you're just a micro group, a couple of employees. You generally don't have setup fees, administrative fees that are separate fees, at least for traditional fully insured plans. You don't have separate claim funds. You don't buy your own separate stop-loss insurance coverage, and you don't purchase separate network discounts. These are all things that in a full self-funded basis are all individual components to the cost. So setup fees is, the fee you pay to get things up and running, and admin fees, the fee that you pay kind of to the third-party administrator to pay claims along the way. A claims fund is where you pay claims from. Stop-loss insurance is essentially large, high-deductible plans, $60,000, $100,000 kind of pooled levels there. And then network discounts are basically network access, so where you're provider of doctors and what are the discounts associated with the services that doctor offers. So like I said, in a fully insured environment, these things are nice and bundled into a plan premium. But in a self-funded plan, they're all separate. So they're good things to know as we look at these kinds of concepts. To look at it slightly differently and then to kind of drill in a little bit more into the groups that we're talking about here. And first off, maybe just to back up a little bit, traditional self-funding is very popular for larger employers. If you're 300 or more employees, there's a good chance you either are self-funded and or you've looked at that as a potential option, or maybe even you're some form of partial self-funding, deductible subsidies, co-insurance sharing, those kinds of things are all levels of self-funding. But that is very common in the large group market. The new phenomena that we're talking about here specifically is self-funded plans targeted for small group insurance and small groups, which are defined as 50 or fewer employees, and kind of how some of that's manifesting itself and how they have to structure those plans to make them feasible for smaller employers. But if you look at just kind of how the breakdown, you have a fully insured premium here on your right. That's what most small businesses that offer group insurance pay, and they do some type of a cost share with their employees. In a level funding plan, they'll present it in a way that has a fixed cost scenario to it, but you actually can look into the details of this, and you can look at the separate admin expenses, which are going to include some of those setup fees and administrative costs, the premium that you pay for the stop-loss insurance, that large deductible insurance, the actual claims that you pay. And in this example, it assumes that you're going to save some money in having your claims be less than what you would pay in a fully insured premium when you combine all those expenses together. But just to kind of put side by side some of the features and benefits of these things, standard small group insurance qualifies. Obviously, both of them will qualify as major medical insurance and protect people from tax penalties for not having insurance. We are, even though there's been a tremendous amount of discussion around changing some of these elements of healthcare and the Affordable Care Act, as we sit here today, nothing has been passed or changed or is contemplated really being changed. No, so there's still an employer mandate, there's still an individual mandate. So both plans, both standard small group insurance and partially self-funded insurance, do satisfy that mandate. Legally, they must cover all of the essential benefits. That's true of both. So those are the 10 essential benefits that would basically make it to where it would satisfy the coverage, individual mandate for coverage. Premiums are tax deductible for both types of plans. Monthly cost can be based on the health of your group. In a Affordable Care Act small group insurance world, that answer is no now. So monthly costs are purely driven on a small group self-funding environment, or purely driven on demographics, basically age and home zip code of the participating employees. Whereas in a partially self-funded environment, the costs are going to be driven by the health of the group. In a self-funded environment, a carrier can ask medical questions and can determine and rate for risk based on what they find there, whereas they can't do that in a fully insured environment. So it says a portion of your monthly premiums are saved in reserve accounts. They're not separated and saved in a fully insured reserve account, whereas they are here, and you can see how that money is being spent. Money in the reserved account is used to pay medical claims. There's no reserve account, so that's not applicable in a small group insurance, fully insured environment, whereas in a partially self-funded environment, that is the function for paying claims. And then you can get a refund, and this is maybe the biggest motivator out there for people really kind of looking into this, in addition to potential basic price differences, is the fact that if you don't use some of the funds in that reserve account, those monies do come back to you at the end of the year, and that's what's represented here in this potential savings here, and that's something that particularly groups that are healthy are interested in. They don't want to feel like they're overpaying for the insurance they have. They're strapped paying everything that they're paying, so any relief that they can get in that environment is obviously welcome. So why are these types of plans gaining in popularity today? Plan design flexibility is the top of the list here. That in the Affordable Care Act world, the small group health insurance market has been pretty well defined and sort of put some rigid kind of rules around that, with loss ratios that need to be paid out, plans that are designed and marked to these different tier levels of metallic tier levels: bronze, silver, gold, platinum. There's mandates as far as what types of benefits need to be in place and how they're in place. So there's that obviously removes a lot of flexibility in a fully insured world. So relative to that, these level premium plans do have a tremendous amount more flexibility. There's going to be some different requirements associated with putting these plans in place. And so that's something that can be appealing for folks that want to have a few different bells and whistles as far as how they design the plans. There's ways to save money by way of refunds. Like I said, that's a big reason that these are gaining in popularity right now. But you still have that backstop or maximum exposure that people are comfortable with in a fully insured environment. So basically, this is a hybrid of traditional self-funding. It's bundled in a way that makes it look and walk and talk and feel like a fully insured contract that people in the small group environment are much more used to having. But the chassis that it's built on is a self-funded chassis. So that comes with some of that flexibility and plan design functionality. What that looks like on kind of just an average scenario that we see here is if we look at a fully insured plan where you have a single 33-year-old rate, you're looking at about a $381 rate for that. It's age rated in a small group environment. I'm sure if somebody's in that category, they're not dealing with composite rates, so they're well aware of what those age-banded rates look like, versus a $240 composite rate, which is an average rate for all types of employees for this. So you're talking about a rate that's starting significantly lower. Now, this would be a base rate before it's actually underwritten. I mentioned that in the level premium world, the carriers or providers of these coverages do have the ability to ask the medical questions and underwrite to the risk. But this is an example of a starting point that might exist there. So you'd see that kind of a premium difference that would encourage an employer to go through the motions, and there are some additional motions which I'll get into in the next step for firming up those rates that they have been proposed in a self-funded environment. So that'll get you motivated to go potentially do some of these things. But it's not all positives. There are some potential drawbacks or things to kind of keep an eye on. There's some additional reporting requirements that come with self-funded plans. So whereas you're under 50 employees, you don't have to do 1095s and 1094s. At self-funded, you have to do both 1094s and 1095s, so it's reporting requirements. You have a few more things to keep an eye on, like you can see how your claims are running over a period of time. That's something that most folks aren't able to really do in a self or a fully insured environment. Potential difficult implementation, I'd say that is a function of how well organized an employer is and motivated they are and how cooperative their employees are, because one major difference here is the whole idea of getting medical applications from individual employees. And small businesses that have 15, 20 employees that are all kind of right there in an office might be easier to manage something like that, but remote traveling employees and or employees that don't have the time, effort, or inclination in some instances to disclose medical information might be hard to track down. And it sort of reminds me back of the old way that we used to do the small group insurance, where we'd start off with base rates and we'd ask either a group or an employee medical questions in order to firm those rates up. That's part of the, it's nice in the fully insured Affordable Care Act world that everything is sort of shelf rated, and it is what it is. That part's sort of easy. Things don't necessarily change under your feet. But if there's potential savings to be had, it makes a little bit of extra legwork, a little bit more manageable, or makes you feel like you have some reward for doing that. So it's a little bit more work on the employer and the broker just to coordinate getting those firm rates done. And there is the asking of employee medical questions at the employee level that has at least some waves to it sometimes. But as far as players that are in this market right now, currently we're putting business with both United Healthcare and Humana on a level premium self-funded basis. Mostly we've been migrating some of our existing fully insured groups with those carriers to these platforms. That makes for a little bit less intense an underwriting process, but there's some players that we haven't done some stuff yet with, like National General, which actually goes down to 2 lives for their plan. So we're interested to see how some of that looks with real life scenarios, comparing those to smaller businesses. And then Aetna has recently come out, and I haven't seen this sort of publicly announced, but it's been announced to us here in our office from folks that we believe that would know this at Aetna. It sounds like Aetna is getting rid of their fully insured small group portfolio altogether and only going to be offering this level premium self-funded concept to the small group market. Now, we haven't really seen that come out yet, but we're fully expecting, if that's their strategy, that not only are they going to be in that game, but hopefully they're going to be aggressively in that game. And to us, just like we always, with every size group that we have, we want to look at any and all options each and every year. Anytime certainly there's a premium change. This is something that right now it's something that we're very curious about seeing, and for those clients that are willing to go through those extra couple of steps in the process, certainly with our help, we want to help kind of present all options on the table, including these. And if you're larger and can support it, we want to put self-funded options, fully self-funded options on the table for you as well. But there's other players I think that are coming, but these are probably the most well-known players in the space. So why and when should you consider level funding? For me, obviously at renewal time when there's price changes coming, that is a way to kind of consider all of your options. Certainly if you're a group that knows that you're either young and pretty healthy or running pretty well, meaning you're claims that are being paid are a lot less than the premiums that you're paying for that, that would be an indicator that maybe there's an opportunity there. It's not always a guarantee, but it's certainly an indication that you should consider it. But even groups that are sort of struggling, to me, the only way to know this, to know definitively whether this is a viable option for you or not, is to kind of go through the process. And for some, if you get a single-digit rate increase and you can spend your time just making more money versus haggling over differences and cost savings vehicles here, that might be a business decision for you to make, and certainly would understand that. But if this is a thorn in your side, the cost related to this, and it's a continual process to the point where you're needing to feel like you need to pull back to stay inside budgets, these are things that I feel like are worth going through the motions and considering. At the end of it all, you might end up feeling a lot better about the fully insured quotes that you have, or you might have a viable other option to kind of go with that really puts you in a place where you have more visibility over what actually is happening within your plan, as well as paying for more what you're getting from your benefit provider. So that is it, as promised. Nice, tight, under 20-minute presentation, 8 slides here, so there's not too much to go on. It was a concept that we wanted to get across, and it's certainly something that, it looks like for a lot of the clients that we have, we want to flush out with them. So we wanted to lay the groundwork that everybody understood the basics of it, and then when the time comes for either renewal or even a mid-year review, if there's something, you're dying to know what this process would be and you're off cycle for your traditional renewals, that's something that we could potentially flush out for you as part of that process. But before I hang up, I'll go ahead and see if there's anybody that has either posted any questions or raised their hands here, and I don't see any in here. And Megan, do we have anybody that's posted any? So we don't have any questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If anybody that's on the line here does have any detailed questions that they want to follow back up with us on, please don't hesitate to do that. Obviously, that's why we're doing this, is we want to help everybody think through these options. So don't ever hesitate to reach out. And other than that, thank you guys for attending today, and be looking for some of these types of things going forward as well. Thank you very much.